Welcome to the channel. Today we begin the true and inspiring story of Richard, a 22-year-old boy. From a small town who had one big dream: to speak English fluently and confidently. Part 1. The beginning of the journey. Richard lived in a peaceful town where not many people spoke English. He had completed his studies in a local school where English was just a subject, not a language for real life. Whenever he watched English movies, listened to English music, or saw people speaking fluently on YouTube, he felt a spark inside. He wanted to do that too. But he was afraid. Afraid of making mistakes. Afraid of being laughed at. And most importantly, he didn't know where to start. One day, while watching a YouTube videos, Richard heard about ChatGPT. The videos explained how students around the world were using ChatGPT to practice English speaking, writing, and even to understand grammar and vocabulary. Richard was curious. Can this really help me? He asked himself. The next morning, with a fresh mind and a little hope, he created an account and opened ChatGPT. His hands trembled a little as he typed, "Hi, can you help me learn English?" ChatGPT replied instantly, "Of course, I'd be happy to help you. What would you like to start with?" Richard smiled. It felt like a real teacher was sitting with him, ready to guide him without judgment. The first step: daily conversation practice. Richard started simple. Every morning he would greet ChatGPT and ask basic questions. How are you? What is the weather like? Tell me a short story. He made mistakes in grammar, sometimes even in spelling, but ChatGPT was patient. It corrected him gently, gave suggestions, and explained things in simple words. Slowly, Richard started feeling confident. He made a rule. I will talk to ChatGPT in English for at least 30 minutes every day, no matter what. Learning from mistakes without fear. The best part? Richard didn't feel embarrassed. When he spoke to real people, he was afraid they could judge him. But ChatGPT never laughed, never got tired, and never complained. He could ask the same question 5 times, and ChatGPT would always reply with a smile. Well, in text. That gave him the freedom to learn by making mistakes. Creating a learning schedule. Soon, Richard made a weekly plan. Monday, learn 10 new words and use them in sentences. Tuesday, write a short story and ask ChatGPT to correct it. Wednesday, learn grammar, tenses, prepositions, articles. Thursday, have a conversation on a random topic. Friday, listen to an English audio and summarize it with ChatGPT. Saturday, practice speaking by typing faster and imagining real speech. Sunday, review everything and ask doubts. This routine became his daily habit. And guess what? In just 3 weeks, he felt a change. He was thinking more in English. He was writing better. He even started speaking short sentences with his friends. Facing the first challenge. One day, his cousin from the city came to visit. During dinner, they started talking about movies. His cousin said, "Let's talk in English, Richard. I heard you're learning it." Richard felt nervous, but he remembered all the practice he had done with ChatGPT. He took a deep breath and started. "Yes, I like English movies. Last week I watched a film called The Pursuit of Happiness. It was really good." His cousin was surprised. Richard didn't speak fast, but his words were clear and his grammar was almost perfect. After that night, Richard felt something new. Confidence. That small conversation gave him the motivation to keep going. He realized, I can do this. And that was just the beginning. Part 2. Richard levels up. From typing to speaking. After that proud dinner conversation with his cousin, Richard felt something powerful inside. Progress. For the first time in his life, he believed, yes, I am learning English. But Richard didn't stop there. He knew that typing and reading English was one thing, but speaking fluently was a whole new mountain to climb. The voice inside his head. One day, Richard asked ChatGPT a question that changed everything. How can I improve my English speaking if I have no one to talk to? ChatGPT replied, you can practice thinking in English. You can also try speaking to yourself. Imagine real situations and speak out loud. You can also repeat after audio clips or short dialogues. That one answer became Richard's new mission. Every morning, after brushing his teeth, he looked into the mirror and said, Good morning, Richard. How are you today? Today I will go to the market and buy some fruits. I feel nervous about speaking English, but I will not stop. He laughed at himself at first, but slowly, this became a powerful daily ritual. He would talk to himself in English while cooking, walking, and even while waiting for the bus. He used his mobile phone to record short clips of himself speaking. Then he asked ChatGPT, Can you check my grammar and fluency? And ChatGPT replied with detailed feedback. Your grammar is good, but try to speak a little slower. You said he go to school. It should be he goes to school. Good use of vocabulary. Try using more connectors like however, so, because. Richard began to treat ChatGPT like a coach, not just a chatbot, bringing English into real life. Richard then decided to take the next big step. He wanted to use English in real-life situations. He made a list of small activities. 1. Call customer care and speak in English. 2. Order food online and write notes in English. Change his phone language to English. 4. Join online English meetups, free ones on Zoom. He joined a small Telegram group for English learners. People from different countries chatted every weekend. Richard joined the call, heart beating fast. When it was his turn to speak, his voice shook. Hello, everyone. My name is Richard. I'm from a small town. I'm learning English with ChatGPT. People clapped and smiled. Some even asked him questions like, How do you use ChatGPT for learning? Can you share your daily routine? That was the first time Richard spoke to strangers in English. His hands were cold, but his heart was warm. He knew this was growth, the power of listening. Richard realized one important thing. If he wanted to speak better, he needed to listen better. So he added listening practice to his daily routine. He listened to simple English podcasts. He watched graded reader stories on YouTube. He used ChatGPT to summarize what he heard. Example, he listened to a short story and asked, ChatGPT, I heard a story about a farmer and his horse. Can you help me write the summary in easy English? ChatGPT replied with a beautiful short paragraph. Richard read it aloud, corrected his pronunciation, and repeated the story in his own words. This gave him both speaking and listening practice. Together. Creating his own lessons. Richard got creative. He began to ask ChatGPT, Give me 10 simple sentences using the past tense. Create a dialogue between two friends at the airport. Give me a mini-test on English articles a and the. He wasn't waiting for a teacher anymore. He had become his own teacher. He created a notebook called My English with ChatGPT and wrote, New words, example sentences, common mistakes, notes from conversations. This notebook became his daily treasure. A message from his past self. One evening, Richard read an old journal entry from 3 months ago. "I don't think I can ever speak English. It feels too difficult." He smiled. "I was wrong," he whispered. Today, he could hold conversations, write stories, ask questions, and even correct his own mistakes. All with the help of daily effort and ChatGPT. And guess what? He had just started recording short English videos for Instagram to inspire others. Part 3. Richard faces the stage. A real-life English test. Richard was doing well. He was speaking to himself, joining online groups, and even helping others with English tips. But he knew deep inside, he had not yet faced the real test. That test came in the form of an invitation. One morning, Richard received a message from his Telegram English group organizer. "Hi, Richard. We are planning an online English storytelling competition next week. Would you like to participate?" His hands trembled as he read it. A storytelling competition? In English? With real people watching? His first thought was, "No way, I'll make mistakes. I'll forget my words. I'll be embarrassed." But then he remembered something ChatGPT had once told him. Growth begins outside your comfort zone. If it feels scary, it probably means you should do it. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and typed, "Yes, I will participate." Preparing the story. Richard had never told a story in English to an audience. So he turned to his old friend, ChatGPT. He typed, "I need help writing a short story for an English competition. Something simple, emotional, and inspiring." ChatGPT responded with 3 story ideas. 1. A village boy who dreams of flying. 2. A dog who saves a family during a flood. 3. A student who overcomes his fear of public speaking. Richard chose the third one because it was his own story. He worked with ChatGPT every day. He wrote a draft, got suggestions, changed the sentences, practiced pronunciation, and timed himself. He asked, "Can you make the sentences sound natural? Can you check for grammar errors? Can you help me simplify this paragraph?" ChatGPT was like a kind teacher, always patient, always helpful. The night before the competition. The night before the event, Richard couldn't sleep. His heart beat faster than ever. He stood in front of the mirror, speaking his story again and again. He whispered, "Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak slowly and clearly. You have come this far. You can do it." He even asked ChatGPT one last question. "Any tips for speaking in front of an audience?" ChatGPT replied, "Make eye contact with the camera. Smile, it shows confidence. Pause after important sentences. Start strong, end stronger." Those lines gave Richard courage. The big moment. The next evening, the competition began. 10 participants joined the Zoom call. People from India, Bangladesh, Morocco, Brazil, and more. When Richard's name was called, his palms were sweating. But he remembered to breathe. He looked into the camera and began. "Hello, everyone. My name is Richard. Today, I will tell you a story about a boy who was afraid to speak English, until he met ChatGPT. As he spoke, something magical happened. His voice became steady. His words flowed. He didn't try to be perfect. He just tried to be clear and honest. He shared how he used ChatGPT every day, how he practiced speaking alone, and how he slowly gained confidence. At one point, he said, "Fear is not your enemy. Silence is. Keep speaking, even when you're afraid." When he finished, the group was silent for 2 seconds. Then came the applause. Virtual claps, heart emojis, messages like, "Amazing story, Richard. You inspired me to try." So real and touching. Richard didn't win first prize that day, but he won something bigger. Belief. A new door opens. The host messaged him privately later. Richard, would you be interested in conducting a small session next month? Maybe a Q&A about learning English with AI? Richard blinked at the screen. He had started as a shy learner. Now people were asking him to share his journey. He replied, "Yes, I'd be honored." Reflecting back. That night, Richard sat in his small room and opened his old notebook. On the first page, he had written, "Goal, speak English confidently." He smiled and added a new line. "Update, goal in progress." And it feels amazing. He turned to ChatGPT once again, not for help this time, but to say, "Thank you for being with me every step of the way." And ChatGPT responded, "You did the hard work, Richard. I just helped you believe in yourself." Part 4. A new beginning in a foreign land. After the storytelling competition, Richard felt like a new person. He could speak. He could express himself. He could even inspire others. But deep inside, he had another dream: to travel to an English-speaking country and live in an environment where everyone spoke English naturally. One day, while browsing a study abroad website, he read, "Language Exchange Volunteer Program in Ireland. Improve your English through cultural immersion." Ireland? A country full of green hills, friendly people, and a rich English-speaking culture? He was nervous, but excited. Richard applied. Weeks later, an email arrived. "Congratulations, Richard. You've been accepted." His heart jumped. The journey to Ireland. Richard's first flight ever was to Dublin, the capital of Ireland. He looked out the airplane window thinking, "Will I understand their English? What if I get lost? What if I can't speak well enough?" But he also reminded himself, "You've practiced every day. You've faced your fear. You'll be okay." At the airport, a cheerful Irish man named Tom welcomed him. "Welcome to Ireland, lad. You're the new volunteer, aren't you?" Richard smiled nervously and replied, "Yes, I'm Richard. Thank you so much." It was his first real English conversation in a foreign land. Living with locals. As part of the program, Richard lived with an Irish host family in a small countryside town. Every morning, he helped at a community library, organizing books, greeting visitors, and talking with children. In the afternoons, he joined cultural activities, cooking, hiking, storytelling circles, all in English. At first, it was hard. The Irish accent was fast. Some words were unfamiliar. People used idioms like, "What's the crack?" It means, "What's up?" "He's grand." It means, "He's good." Richard asked questions politely. "Sorry, can you say that again more slowly? What does that word mean?" And people were always kind. One elderly woman said, "You speak very well, Richard. Don't be shy, just talk, even if you make mistakes. That's how we all learn." A special friendship. One day, Richard met Emily, a university student who volunteered at the same library. She noticed his careful English and said, "You're learning fast. Want to practice with me over tea?" From then on, they met every evening. They spoke about everything: Indian and Irish cultures, childhood memories, future dreams. Sometimes Richard made grammar mistakes or forgot words. But Emily would smile and say, "Don't worry, I understand you perfectly." That gave him more confidence than any textbook ever had. Facing the unexpected one evening, the library staff asked Richard, "Would you like to give a short talk about your culture next week?" It was not just about speaking English now. It was about representing his country. Richard prepared day and night, with the help of ChatGPT again. He wrote a speech about Indian traditions, food, festivals, and even how he learned English. On the day of the talk, the library was full of people, locals, children, volunteers. He stood in front of them, smiled, and began. "Hello, my name is Richard. I come from a small village, and today I want to share a little piece of my home with you." He spoke for 15 minutes, confidently, clearly, from the heart. When he finished, people clapped warmly, some even hugged him. An old man said, "Your English is beautiful. Not just the language, but the way you tell your story." Richard was speechless. The lesson of immersion. During his 2 months in Ireland, Richard learned something that changed him. Language is not just grammar or vocabulary. It's about connection, with people, with ideas, with culture. He made friends, learned local phrases, and even picked up jokes in English. By the end of his stay, people often asked him, "Are you sure you're not from here?" And he would laugh and reply, "No, I just listened a lot and kept speaking." Heading back home. When Richard returned to village, he was different. He wasn't afraid to speak English anymore. He had lived it, breathed it, and shared it. People in his town noticed. A school teacher asked, "Would you speak to our students about learning English?" And Richard said, "With pleasure." Now he wasn't just a learner. He was becoming a guide. Part 5. From Student to Success. Richard's Dream Job. Richard stood at the edge of the stage in his village's small school hall. Hundreds of eyes were on him. Students, teachers, parents. He was not nervous. He had changed. He had grown. He began his speech. "I once feared speaking English. Today, I'm here to tell you that if I can do it, so can you." The applause after his talk was loud, but something louder was growing inside him. A calling. A purpose. Starting a local English club. After returning from Ireland, Richard felt he had a mission. He went to his village library and asked, "Can we reserve a corner of this library for spoken English practice?" The librarian smiled. "For you, Richard, yes. I've seen your journey. Let's call it the English Corner." Richard brought his old notes, printed conversation starters, hung a world map, and placed a sign. "Speak English, not perfect English." Soon, children and teenagers began gathering every evening. They read stories aloud. They asked each other simple questions. They laughed when they made mistakes and kept speaking. Richard didn't teach with rules. He taught with stories, role plays, and games. He told them, "Your mouth is a muscle. Speak every day and it will grow stronger." An unexpected invitation. One morning, Richard got a phone call. It was from a well-known English learning institute in the city. "Hello, is this Richard? We've heard about your community work. Would you be interested in joining us as a communication skills coach?" Richard was stunned. He had no formal degree in English, no certificate, just passion, experience, and fluency earned the hard way. He traveled to the city for the interview. There were others in suits, holding certificates. Richard wore a simple shirt and brought his confidence. In the interview, they asked, "What's the best way to learn English?" He replied, "By using it, every day, with joy, not fear, like I did, with a free tool, a library, and a dream." They didn't ask more. They just smiled and said, "Welcome to the team." Richard's best job ever. His job was amazing. Every day, he helped young professionals prepare for interviews. He trained call center workers to speak with international clients. He worked with nurses, teachers, and shopkeepers. And every time someone said, "I'm scared to speak," he would reply, "You know, I used to be scared too." His story gave others hope, his lessons gave them clarity, and his attitude gave them confidence. A visit to a special place. A year later, Richard returned to his old school in the village. He met his childhood teacher, Mr. Sharma, who said, "Richard, I remember when you struggled to say a sentence. Look at you now. What's your secret?" Richard smiled. "My secret? I stopped chasing perfection. I started speaking, reading, listening. I made English part of my life, and I never gave up." He was invited to speak at schools, colleges, even small companies, not because he was famous, but because he was real. ChatGPT, the silent teacher. Richard never forgot what helped him the most in his early days. ChatGPT. When others were shy to talk with people, he spoke freely with the chatbot. When he didn't know a word, he asked. When he couldn't build a sentence, he typed it and learned. When he needed motivation, he got it. He always said to his students, "You don't need to go to foreign countries to speak English. You need to go inside your own world, where you are brave enough to try." A small ceremony, a big recognition. One evening, the institute where he worked held a ceremony. They announced a special award. Best Communication Coach of the Year goes to Richard. The audience clapped. Some stood. Some had tears in their eyes. He walked to the stage slowly, held the trophy, and said, "This is not just my award. This is for every village boy who felt left behind, for every girl who thought English was only for the rich, and for every learner who speaks even when they're afraid." What Richard believes now. English is not a subject, it's a skill. You don't need big money, you need big effort. Speak with mistakes, listen with focus, read with curiosity. Make English a part of your life, not a task, but a tool. The journey never ends. Even after achieving his dream job, Richard continued to grow. He still learned new words every week. He still talked with ChatGPT at night to sharpen his thoughts. He still helped his village school on weekends. And whenever someone asked, "How did you become so good in English?" he would smile and say, "I didn't just learn English, I lived it." Final words. A message for you. If Richard can do it, you can do it too. He started from a small village with big fear and small resources. But with consistent effort, smart strategies, and the right mindset, he learned English and changed his life. Now it's your turn. Believe in yourself. Practice every day. Speak even if you make mistakes. Because the more you try, the more you grow. We wish you all the best on your English journey. And if you found this story helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so others can also learn, improve, and get inspired.